Margaret Sullivan had taught third grade at Lincoln Elementary School for 40 years, arriving each morning at precisely 7:30 and leaving when the last student was safely picked up. Her classroom, room 12B, was a sanctuary of learning filled with colorful alphabet charts, student artwork, and the gentle hum of children discovering the magic of reading and writing. At 68 years old, Margaret moved with the measured grace of someone who had spent decades navigating between tiny desks and eager hands. Her silver hair was always pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore the same style of comfortable cardigans that had become her trademark over the decades. Students past and present remembered her gentle voice, never raised in anger, and her remarkable ability to see potential in every child who entered her classroom. Margaret had never married, dedicating her entire adult life to education. Her small apartment was filled with cards from former students, photographs from countless class parties, and shelves lined with children's books she had collected over the years. She lived modestly on her teacher's salary, finding joy in the simple pleasures of watching her students grow and succeed. The school where she taught was located in one of the city's most challenging neighborhoods. Many of her students came from families struggling with poverty, single-parent households, and the daily uncertainties that accompanied financial hardship. Margaret understood their challenges intimately, often spending her own money on school supplies, snacks for hungry children, and small gifts to celebrate their achievements. Her teaching philosophy was simple but profound. Every child deserved to feel valued, capable, and loved. She had a remarkable gift for identifying each student's unique strengths and nurturing them with patience and encouragement. Former colleagues often marveled at her ability to reach even the most difficult children, transforming behavior problems into confident learners through her unwavering belief in their potential. What made Margaret truly special was her silence about her impact. She never sought recognition, never spoke about her sacrifices, and never expected gratitude. She simply showed up every day, year after year, quietly changing lives one student at a time without fanfare or acknowledgement. Block 2, the struggling student. In the fall of 1987, 8-year-old David Chen entered Margaret Sullivan's third-grade classroom carrying more than just a backpack. He carried the weight of his family's financial struggles, the uncertainty of frequent moves, and the deep insecurity that came from being different in a school where he was one of the few Asian American students. David's parents had immigrated from Taiwan just 3 years earlier, working multiple jobs to make ends meet. His father worked nights at a factory while studying English during the day, and his mother cleaned office buildings while caring for David's younger sister. They lived in a cramped apartment above a convenience store, where the sounds of traffic and late-night customers made studying difficult. The language barrier created additional challenges for David. While he was fluent in Mandarin at home, English remained a struggle, especially in academic contexts. He was embarrassed by his accent, self-conscious about his second-hand clothes, and overwhelmed by the cultural differences that made him feel like an outsider among his classmates. Margaret immediately recognized the signs of a bright child trapped by circumstances beyond his control. She noticed how David's eyes lit up during math lessons, his natural curiosity about science experiments, and his careful attention to detail in every assignment. However, she also observed his reluctance to participate in class discussions, his habit of sitting alone at lunch, and the way he tried to make himself invisible. Other teachers had dismissed David as a quiet student who simply needed time to adjust. But Margaret saw something more. During parent conferences, she gently explained to David's exhausted parents that their son possessed exceptional intelligence and potential. She offered to work with him after school, free of charge, to help build his confidence and strengthen his English skills. Margaret's after-school sessions became a lifeline for. In the quiet of the empty classroom, away from the judgment of peers, he began to flourish. Margaret patiently worked with him on pronunciation, reading comprehension, and writing skills. More importantly, she helped him understand that being different was not a weakness, but a strength that would serve him well in life. Block 3. Beyond the classroom. Margaret's investment in David extended far beyond academic tutoring. She recognized that his family's financial constraints were limiting his opportunities for enrichment and growth. Without ever making the family feel like recipients of charity, she found creative ways to provide David with experiences that would expand his world. When the class took field trips to museums or science centers, Margaret quietly paid David's admission fees and lunch costs, telling his parents that the school had received special funding for students. She purchased books for him to take home, framing them as classroom loans that he could keep indefinitely. During the harsh winters, she ensured he had warm clothes by organizing clothing swaps, where families could exchange outgrown items. Margaret also understood the importance of building David's confidence beyond academics. She encouraged him to participate in the school's math competition, staying after school to help him prepare. When he expressed interest in science, she brought in extra experiments and materials, allowing him to explore concepts that weren't part of the standard curriculum. Most significantly, Margaret served as an emotional anchor for David during a turbulent period in his young life. When his family faced eviction and had to move to an even smaller apartment across town, she worked with the administration to ensure David could finish the school year at Lincoln Elementary. She provided the stability and consistency that his chaotic home life couldn't offer. Margaret's influence went beyond academics and material support. She taught David about resilience, showing him through her own example that challenges were opportunities for growth. She helped him understand that his bilingual abilities and multicultural perspective were advantages that would serve him throughout his life. During David's time in her classroom, Margaret never spoke about her sacrifices or sought recognition for her efforts. She simply did what she believed was right, investing in a child's future without expectation of return. Her quiet dedication created a foundation of trust and learning that would shape David's character for decades to come. Block 4. The Seeds of Success. Under Margaret's nurturing guidance, David Chen's transformation was remarkable. His grades improved dramatically, but more importantly, his confidence began to bloom. He started participating in class discussions, forming friendships with classmates, and developing a genuine love for learning that would carry him through his educational journey. Margaret recognized that David possessed exceptional mathematical abilities and encouraged him to pursue advanced concepts. She spent countless hours after school working with him on algebra problems typically reserved for middle school students. When the school couldn't provide appropriate challenges, she purchased advanced workbooks with her own money and created individualized lesson plans to keep him engaged. By the end of 3rd grade, David was reading at a 6th grade level and solving mathematical problems that challenged students twice his age. However, Margaret's greatest achievement wasn't academic. It was helping David develop the self-belief necessary to pursue his dreams, despite the obstacles he faced. Margaret also worked behind the scenes to ensure David's continued success. She spoke with his future teachers, sharing insights about his learning style and recommending strategies to help him thrive. She connected his family with community resources, including tutoring programs and scholarship opportunities that would support his educational journey. When David's family expressed concerns about affording school supplies and fees for advanced programs, Margaret quietly arranged for anonymous sponsorships through local community organizations. She never took credit for these arrangements, allowing the family to maintain their dignity while ensuring David had every opportunity to succeed. As David prepared to leave her classroom for 4th grade, Margaret presented him with a special gift, a leather-bound journal where he could record his thoughts, dreams, and goals. Inside the front cover, she had written a simple message. David, never forget that you have the power to change the world. I believe in you always. Mrs. Sullivan. That journal would become one of David's most treasured possessions, traveling with him through middle school, high school, college, and beyond. Margaret's words of encouragement would echo in his mind during moments of doubt and challenge throughout his life. Block 5. The Years Pass, by David Chen excelled throughout his remaining elementary years, carrying with him the confidence and love of learning that Margaret had instilled. Middle school brought new challenges, but the foundation she had built proved unshakable. Teachers consistently noted his exceptional work ethic, intellectual curiosity, and respectful demeanor, all qualities that reflected Margaret's influence. Margaret continued teaching at Lincoln Elementary, quietly touching the lives of hundreds of other students. Each year brought new children facing their own unique challenges: poverty, family instability, learning disabilities, and social difficulties. With each student, she applied the same patient dedication and unwavering belief in their potential that she had shown David. The school district underwent numerous changes during Margaret's tenure. Budget cuts reduced resources, class sizes increased, and administrative pressures mounted. Younger teachers came and went, often overwhelmed by the demands of teaching in an underfunded urban school. Through it all, Margaret remained a constant presence, adapting to new curricula while maintaining her core philosophy of treating each child as a unique individual deserving of respect and opportunity. Margaret never married or had children of her own, but her former students became her extended family. She kept track of their progress through the years, celebrating their graduations, marriages, and career achievements from afar. Her apartment walls were covered with photographs and letters from students who remembered her impact on their lives. Despite opportunities to transfer to schools in more affluent neighborhoods or pursue administrative positions, Margaret chose to remain at Lincoln Elementary. She believed her purpose was to serve the children who needed her most, the ones who might not find success without someone believing in their potential. As the years passed, Margaret watched education evolve around her. Technology transformed classrooms, teaching methods changed, and new theories emerged about childhood development. She embraced beneficial innovations while staying true to the timeless principles that had guided her career: patience, kindness, and the unwavering belief that every child could learn and succeed. Margaret's reputation within the school community was legendary, though she shunned publicity and recognition. Parents specifically requested their children be placed in her classroom, knowing that Mrs. Sullivan would provide not just education, but genuine care and attention to their child's development. Block 6. David's Rise. David Chen graduated high school as valedictorian, earning a full scholarship to MIT where he studied computer science and mathematics. The shy 8-year-old who had once struggled with English was now fluent in multiple programming languages and comfortable presenting complex ideas to professors and peers. Throughout his college years, David often thought about Margaret Sullivan and the profound impact she had made on his life. He kept the journal she had given him, now filled with dreams, goals, and achievements that seemed impossible during those early days in her classroom. He frequently referenced her teaching methods and encouragement when facing academic challenges. After graduating from MIT with highest honors, David moved to Silicon Valley, where he joined a promising tech startup. His mathematical abilities, analytical thinking, and work ethic, all nurtured by Margaret's early guidance, quickly set him apart in the competitive technology industry. He possessed not just technical skills, but the emotional intelligence and interpersonal abilities that Margaret had helped develop. Within 5 years, David had co-founded his own company, developing software solutions that revolutionized data analysis for businesses worldwide. His company grew rapidly, attracting major investors and clients. By his 30s, David had become a multi-millionaire, and by 40, his net worth had reached billionaire status. Success in business allowed David to pursue his passion for education and social impact. He established a foundation focused on supporting underprivileged students, particularly those from immigrant families facing challenges similar to what he had experienced. The foundation provided scholarships, mentoring programs, and resources to schools serving low-income communities. Despite his wealth and success, David remained humble and grounded. He attributed much of his achievement to the early foundation Margaret had provided, though he had lost touch with her over the years. He often spoke publicly about the importance of teachers and education, though he rarely shared specific details about his own transformative experience. David's company went public when he was 42, making him one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the technology sector. Media attention followed, with journalists eager to tell the story of the immigrant child who had achieved the American dream through innovation and determination. Block 7. The Retirement. Margaret Sullivan announced her retirement from Lincoln Elementary in June 2020, concluding 40 years of dedicated service to education. The school organized a small celebration, attended by current colleagues, a few former students who lived in the area, and administrators who recognized her decades of commitment. The retirement ceremony was modest, reflecting Margaret's preference for simplicity and her discomfort with public attention. Principal Martinez spoke about her consistent excellence, her positive influence on countless students, and her role as a mentor to younger teachers throughout her career. Margaret's retirement speech was characteristically brief and humble. She thanked the school community for allowing her to pursue her passion for teaching and expressed gratitude for the opportunity to work with so many wonderful children over the years. She made no mention of her personal sacrifices or the extraordinary impact she had made on individual lives. As Margaret cleaned out her classroom for the final time, she carefully packed away 4 decades of memories, thank you notes from students, photographs from countless class parties, and small gifts that represented the love and appreciation of children she had taught. Each item told a story of a life dedicated to service and the quiet satisfaction of making a difference. The transition to retirement was challenging for Margaret. After spending 40 years in the classroom, she struggled to find purpose and routine in her new life. She volunteered at the local library, tutored struggling students, and remained connected to education in various ways. But nothing quite filled the void left by her teaching career. Margaret's modest teacher's pension provided for her basic needs, but left little room for luxuries or travel. She continued living in the same small apartment she had occupied for decades, surrounded by books, photographs, and mementos from her teaching career. Her social circle consisted mainly of fellow retired teachers and neighbors in her apartment complex. Despite her significant impact on education, Margaret received no major recognition or awards for her service. There were no newspaper articles celebrating her retirement, no honorary degrees from universities, and no public acknowledgement of her 4 decades of dedication to children who needed her most. Block 8. The Reunion Planning. In early 2023, Sarah Williams, a former student of Margaret's from the class of 1995, decided to organize a reunion for Lincoln Elementary alumni. Sarah, now a successful lawyer, had fond memories of her 3rd grade year and wanted to bring together classmates to celebrate their shared experiences and honor the teachers who had shaped their lives. Sarah created a social media group for Lincoln Elementary alumni and was amazed by the enthusiastic response. Former students from across several decades joined the group, sharing memories, photographs, and updates about their lives. The common thread in many stories was the positive impact of their teachers, with Margaret Sullivan's name appearing repeatedly in posts and comments. As the reunion planning progressed, Sarah was struck by the number of successful individuals who credited Margaret with providing crucial support during their elementary years. Doctors, teachers, business owners, and community leaders all shared similar stories about Mrs. Sullivan's patience, encouragement, and belief in their potential during difficult times. The challenge was locating Margaret herself. Sarah discovered that she had retired 3 years earlier, but the school couldn't provide current contact information due to privacy policies. The search for Margaret became a priority for the reunion committee, as many alumni specifically wanted to thank her for her influence on their lives. Through persistent research and networking among former students, the committee eventually located Margaret's address. They were saddened to learn about her modest living situation, and surprised that someone who had impacted so many lives was living in relative anonymity without recognition for her contributions. Sarah and several other alumni decided that the reunion would serve not just as a celebration of their shared past, but as an opportunity to honor Margaret Sullivan and show their appreciation for her dedication. They began planning a special presentation to acknowledge her 4 decades of service and the positive impact she had made on their lives. The reunion committee also decided to research and invite as many of Margaret's former students as possible, hoping to surprise her with the breadth and success of the lives she had influenced. They were particularly eager to track down students from her early years of teaching, recognizing that many of them might now be in their 40s and 50s with impressive careers and families. Block 9. The Search for David. Among the names that appeared frequently in reunion discussions was David Chen from the class of 1987. Several classmates remembered him as the quiet, intelligent boy who had worked closely with Mrs. Sullivan, but none had maintained contact with him over the years. The reunion committee was particularly interested in locating David, as multiple former students recalled Mrs. Sullivan spending extra time helping him after school. Sarah Williams took on the task of finding David, starting with basic internet searches and social media platforms. Initial searches yielded little information, as David maintained a relatively low public profile despite his business success. However, persistence and networking eventually led to connections within the technology industry. When Sarah finally located David Chen through his foundation's website, she was stunned to discover that the quiet 3rd grader she remembered had become one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. His biography described his journey from immigrant child to billionaire philanthropist, but made no mention of his early education at Lincoln Elementary. Sarah sent a carefully crafted email to David's foundation, explaining the reunion plans and specifically mentioning Margaret Sullivan's name. She described the impact Mrs. Sullivan had made on numerous students, and asked if David might consider attending the reunion to honor their former teacher. David's response came within hours of Sarah's email. His reply was immediate and emotional, expressing his profound gratitude for Margaret's influence on his life and his eagerness to participate in any event honoring her. He shared that he had never forgotten Mrs. Sullivan's kindness, and had often credited her with setting the foundation for his success. In subsequent conversations, David revealed the depth of Margaret's impact on his life. He described the after-school tutoring sessions, her quiet financial support for his family, and the confidence she had instilled in him during a crucial period of his development. He expressed regret that he had lost touch with her over the years. David immediately offered to help fund the reunion and any special recognition for Margaret. More importantly, he requested the opportunity to personally thank her for changing the trajectory of his life. His enthusiasm for honoring Margaret became a driving force behind the reunion planning. Block 10. The surprise unfolds. The reunion was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon in the Lincoln Elementary Gymnasium, decorated with photographs and memorabilia from different decades of the school's history. Margaret had been invited as a special guest, though the organizers had deliberately kept the full scope of the celebration as a surprise. Margaret arrived at the reunion wearing a simple blue dress and carrying a small purse, somewhat overwhelmed by the large crowd and elaborate decorations. She recognized many faces from her years of teaching, though she was amazed by how her former students had grown and changed. The warm greetings and enthusiastic hugs from adults who had once been her third graders brought tears to her eyes. As Margaret moved through the crowd, former students approached her with stories about how she had influenced their lives. A doctor explained how her encouragement had led him to pursue medicine. A teacher described how Margaret's patience had inspired her own teaching philosophy. A social worker credited Margaret with teaching her the importance of believing in every child's potential. The formal program began with Sarah Williams welcoming everyone and acknowledging the teachers who had shaped their lives at Lincoln Elementary. Several alumni shared brief stories about their favorite memories and the lessons they had learned. Margaret sat in the front row, still unaware of the special recognition being planned. When Sarah announced that the afternoon would include a special presentation honoring Margaret Sullivan's 40 years of service, Margaret looked surprised and slightly uncomfortable with the attention. She had never expected such recognition and felt unprepared for any formal acknowledgement of her career. The presentation began with a video compilation of messages from former students who couldn't attend the reunion. Faces appeared on screen from across the country and around the world, each sharing specific memories of Mrs. Sullivan's kindness, patience, and belief in their abilities. Margaret watched in amazement as successful adults described moments from their childhood, when her encouragement had made crucial differences in their lives. As the video concluded, Sarah announced that there was one more special guest who had traveled across the country specifically to honor Mrs. Sullivan. Margaret looked around curiously, unaware that her life was about to come full circle in the most unexpected way. Block 11. The moment of recognition. David Chen stepped onto the small stage in the Lincoln Elementary Gymnasium, his presence commanding immediate attention from the crowd. Many alumni didn't recognize the successful businessman as the quiet 8-year-old who had once sat in the back row of Margaret's classroom, struggling with English and overwhelmed by his family's challenges. Margaret looked up at the stage with curiosity, studying the well-dressed man who seemed familiar, but had changed dramatically from the child she remembered. As David began to speak, his voice carried the same gentle tone and careful pronunciation that she had helped him develop decades earlier. 36 years ago, I walked into room 12B as a scared 8-year-old who could barely speak English, David began, his eyes fixed on Margaret. I was the son of immigrants, living in poverty, feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. I was failing academically and emotionally, convinced that I would never amount to anything. Recognition dawned slowly on Margaret's face as David continued his story. Her hand moved to her mouth in surprise as memories of the quiet, determined boy she had mentored came flooding back. The transformation was remarkable. The confident billionaire on stage bore little resemblance to the insecure child she had known. There was one teacher who saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself, David continued, his voice beginning to tremble with emotion. She stayed after school to help me with reading and math. She bought me books and clothes without ever making my family feel like charity cases. She taught me that being different was a strength, not a weakness. The gymnasium fell completely silent as David's words resonated with everyone present. Many alumni wiped away tears as they recognized their own experiences in his story. Margaret sat frozen in her chair, overwhelmed by the realization that the successful man on stage was her former student. Mrs. Margaret Sullivan didn't just teach me academics, David said, looking directly at his former teacher. She taught me to believe in myself. She showed me that one person's faith in a child can change everything. She saved my life, and I've never had the chance to properly thank her. David's voice broke as he concluded. Mrs. Sullivan, everything I've achieved, every success I've had, started in your classroom. You are the reason I'm standing here today. Block 12. The Tears of Gratitude. As David's words echoed through the gymnasium, Margaret Sullivan rose slowly from her chair, tears streaming down her face. The impact of seeing her former student, the quiet, struggling boy she had nurtured with such care, transformed into a successful, confident man, was overwhelming beyond measure. David stepped down from the stage and walked directly to Margaret, the 40-year gap between teacher and student dissolving in an instant. When he reached her, he gently took her hands in his and looked into her eyes with profound gratitude. Mrs. Sullivan, he said softly, I've wanted to find you for years to tell you how much you changed my life. You probably don't remember, but you gave me a journal when I left your class. I still have it. I've carried your words with me through every challenge and success. Margaret struggled to find her voice, overcome by the emotion of the moment. David, she whispered, I remember you perfectly. You were such a bright, wonderful boy. I always knew you would do something special with your life. You're the one who made it possible, David replied, his own eyes filled with tears. You saw potential in a child that nobody else noticed. You invested in me when I had nothing to offer in return. You changed the entire trajectory of my life. The entire gymnasium watched in respectful silence as the reunion of teacher and student unfolded. Many alumni were moved to tears by witnessing the profound connection between Margaret and David, understanding that they were observing something truly special. David then surprised everyone by announcing his intention to establish a scholarship fund in Margaret's honor. The Margaret Sullivan Foundation would provide support for teachers working in underprivileged schools and scholarships for immigrant children facing challenges similar to what he had experienced. Mrs. Sullivan taught me that education is the most powerful force for change in the world, David explained to the crowd. This foundation will ensure that other teachers like her can continue making miracles happen in classrooms across the country. Margaret was overwhelmed by David's generosity and the recognition of her life's work. For 40 years, she had taught in relative anonymity, never seeking praise or acknowledgement. To discover that her efforts had contributed to such remarkable success was more fulfilling than any award or recognition she could have imagined. Block 13. The circle complete. The reunion continued for several more hours, but the focus remained on the extraordinary connection between Margaret Sullivan and David Chen. Their story became a powerful reminder to everyone present about the lasting impact that dedicated teachers can have on their students' lives. David spent the remainder of the afternoon with Margaret, sharing details about his journey from her classroom to Silicon Valley. He described how her lessons about perseverance, self-belief, and the importance of helping others had guided his business decisions and philanthropic efforts throughout his career. Margaret, in turn, shared her memories of teaching David and the joy she had felt watching him grow in confidence and ability. She admitted that she had often wondered what had become of her former students, particularly those who had faced significant challenges during their time in her classroom. As the reunion drew to a close, David presented Margaret with a special gift: a leather-bound book containing letters from hundreds of her former students who had learned about the reunion through social media. Each letter described a specific way that Mrs. Sullivan had influenced their lives, creating a testament to 4 decades of quiet dedication and love. The final surprise came when David announced that he had purchased a house for Margaret in a safe, comfortable neighborhood, ensuring that her retirement years would be free from financial worry. You gave me everything when I had nothing, he told her. Please let me give something back to you. Margaret initially protested the generous gift, but David and the other alumni convinced her to accept it as a small token of appreciation for her lifetime of service. The house would allow her to live with dignity and comfort, surrounded by the love and gratitude of the thousands of students whose lives she had touched. The reunion ended with Margaret and David promising to stay in regular contact. David arranged for monthly visits whenever his business travel brought him to the area, ensuring that the connection they had renewed would never again be broken. The story of Margaret Sullivan and David Chen spread far beyond the reunion, inspiring educators across the country and reminding communities about the profound importance of supporting teachers who work in challenging circumstances. Margaret's quiet dedication had created ripples that extended far beyond what she had ever imagined possible. Today, Margaret lives comfortably in her new home, still volunteering with literacy programs and mentoring young teachers. David visits regularly, and their renewed friendship serves as a beautiful reminder that the best teachers never truly retire. Their influence continues to grow through the lives they touch and the love they share. Tell us in the comments, from what part of the world are you watching our video? Stories like this remind us that teachers truly have the power to change lives forever.